I don't think I'm going to be able to get this shoulder pad looking accurate without using the BlueFlyTrap method. So that is what we are going to do next. And yes, I am going to be combining methods here, because that is how I usually do things. Is I will use the Fennecai method for the majority of the body, and then I will use BlueFlyTrap's method on metallic bits. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be separating just the metallic pieces from the rest of the body, and then in Blender, and then re-exporting them, recompiling. And you can even use this method on an entire character, so you don't have to mix or combine methods. But there are a few reasons why you wouldn't want to do that, and I will explain that in just a bit. Back in Blender, I am in a new project file. I deleted the cube, and I am going to import all of our SMD files from our proportion trick compile folder. Unselect the VTA. All right, and now what we're going to do is go back to the proportion trick compile folder, and we are going to make another subfolder called BlueFlyTrap proportion compile. Back in Blender, we are going to separate just the metallic bits from the rest of the body. So the shoulder is the main metallic bit that we're going to be working on, and that is already separated. In a separate Blender session, I have the original model opened up so we can see what bits are metallic. So obviously the shoulder, and we're going to want to separate these buttons and these thingies, metallic bits on the gun, this belt buckle, the hilts of the knives. So back in our SMD, this belt buckle bit and these, that's it for that part of the mesh. So separate selection, press P to separate by selection. And now we have the metallic bits separate from the rest of it. And we're going to do the same thing for the buttons and the other thingies up here. Okay, so that's about it. And we can go ahead and rename them to the appropriate things. These are already named knives, so that's fine. And these bits over here, we're going to name belt metallics. Over here, we'll name this collar metallics. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to select everything except the metallics. So I will select all of the metallics that we just separated. Metallics, metallics, metallics. We're going to hide the metallics. And now we're going to select everything, which is everything except the metallics. And we're going to export these to the BFT proportion compile folder. And so with all of these selected, we're going to go to File, Export, Selected Objects, and we're going to delete them, except for the skeleton. Now Alt-H to unhide the metallics, and there are all the metallic bits. We're going to go to Materials. We're changing the material names to a new naming scheme. We are going to have 5 layers of these models on top of each other. First layer are going to have materials with the diff suffix on all of them, which we have just completed. Okay, and now we're going to go to the Object tab, and we are going to put a number on each of these. They are all going to be 0, 1, because this is the first layer of the stack. And we're going to take all of the models that are in collections, and we're going to drag them out of their collections, and then we're going to delete all the empty collections. And now we are going to select all, export selected objects. Back in the proportion trick compile folder, we're going to grab the physics SMD and the head VTA and copy those into the BlueFlyTrap folder, as well as the QC file and the animations and output folder. Okay, so that is the first layer done. And now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to replace _diff with _m on all of the objects. Okay, so now they all have m as their material name suffix, and we're going to go to the Object tab and change it from 01 to 02 on all of them. And now that we're done renaming them all to 02, and giving them the _m suffix on the material name. So we're going to select all, export selected objects, and make sure it's still exporting to the same folder, which is the BlueFlyTrap compile proportion compile folder. Now we are going to do the same thing yet again, but instead of _m, it's going to be _r. And you're going to do the same process until you reach B. B will be the last layer. So I'm going to switch all these from M to R, and then do the same thing for G and the same thing for B, and each time renaming the models to the next number. So this will be 03 for R, and the next one will be 04 for G, and 05 for B. And that will be the last layer, and then we can move on to the next step. Now you will see we have this gigantic compile folder with 5 stacks of the same model for each metallic bit. Now you're going to edit the QC file to reflect these changes. One thing about this method is that you cannot have toggleable body groups. So the ones that you can turn on and off with the blank option cannot be a thing anymore, because we need to stack these models, and you cannot toggle stacks of models. So we are going to start with the belt, and instead of body group, we are going to use the command model belt metallics 01.smd, and then we're going to copy that and paste it for all 5 stacks and change each one to the stack order like that. And we are going to do the same thing for every metallic bit. And another important thing to note is that the source engine has a material limit. So one model can have a max of 32 materials, I think. You are going to need to count how many materials your model has without this trick, and then you're going to need to count how many materials your model will have with this trick. Each metallic stack has 1 material per object. So the belt is worth 5 materials. The collar is also worth 5 materials. The knives are worth 5 materials, and the shoulder pad is worth 5 materials. So that's 20 materials for these metallic bits. This model has 12 materials by default, and we will have to add that to the 20 new ones that we are making with this. And that is exactly 32 materials. So we are right on the limit with this, and it might even break. So in that case, you're just going to have to choose one thing to PBRify. Once you're done getting your stacks in order, you are going to compile this. There is a good chance that having this many stacks of the same models in one model altogether will exceed the vertice limit or vertex limit or whatever. If that happens, you have 2 options. You can either forego having pseudo PBR on some of these models, so I would get rid of probably everything except belt and the shoulder pad, or you can attempt to compile with the Source Filmmaker compiler as opposed to the Garry's Mod one. In order to do that, you will need to get the Playermodel animation models from the Garry's Mod files and put them into your Source Filmmaker folders, being the user mod and Half-Life 2 folders. So in Crowbar, I'm selecting the BlueFlyTrap proportion compile QC, and I'm going to change output from the regular output to the BlueFlyTrap proportion compile output folder. Click compile. All right, so it didn't give me any errors, so I'm going to back up the add-on folder, and now I will grab the newly compiled BlueFlyTrap version of our model and replace what we have in Garry's Mod add-on folder. Alright, so in-game, it looks like we are good to go with it not exceeding the vertex limit, the shoulder pad and other things are there and they're not super messed up and deformed. I did forget to include the bag though that she had on her thigh. So I'm gonna have to redo that bit. We now have to convert, using BlueFlyTrap's method, the textures for all these parts to his standards. I'm going to be following his guide as I explain what I'm doing to you, because it's so long and complicated that it's almost impossible to memorize. So I'm going to open up all of the textures for her coat, which is the texture that has the shoulder pad on it. We're going to start with the shoulder pad. And I'm going to open up each texture map in GIMP individually. So that would be the diffuse, the roughness, the normal, and the metalness. So here are all the texture maps for that material. If I sound upset, it's because I hate this process and I'm not looking forward to doing it. All right, so now we are going to go to our roughness map. You can see the name of the current file up here. So this is our roughness map, and we are going to go to colors, invert. We are turning it into a gloss map. That's how you turn roughness into gloss, is by inverting it. And now we are going to duplicate this layer, select it, and go to levels. We're going to put 0.6 in this box and 10 in this box, and click OK. We name this gloss leveled, and we're going to name this one gloss. In my case, I have a cavity map, aka ambient occlusion map. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to bring it to our gloss, and I'm going to paste in place on a new layer and set this to multiply. And then I'm going to merge down with the leveled gloss. We are going to delete the regular gloss, select the leveled gloss, select all, copy. Then we're going to go to our normal map, and I'm using GIMP. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to click add layer mask, layers alpha channel, add, and then selecting the alpha channel mask that we just created, I'm going to go up here and click paste in place, and then anchor it into the alpha mask, right click, apply layer mask. And now we have this thing. It looks messed up, but if you disable the alpha, it's still the intact normal, but it has some information in the alpha channel, so that's why it looks like that, but that's what we want. Now we are going to export this normal map, change the name to shoulder pad normal, to make a new folder called BlueFlyTrap Trickified on the desktop, export the normal there. So we can X out the normal because we're done with it. Now we are going to go to the metalness map, and we're going to select all, we're going to copy that, and then we're going to go back to our leveled gloss, paste in place, and then we are going to select the metalness that we just pasted here, and we're going to invert it. And now we're going to apply levels, and we are going to change the middle input box to 0.4545. GIMP only lets you do 0.45, and as far as I'm aware, there's not anything you can do about that, so I just roll with it and click OK. And now we're going to select this inverted metalness, and we're going to invert it again. And now we are going to change the layer mode to multiply. And now we are going to merge it down into the leveled gloss. And now it is one image. And up here, we're going to go to image mode, and we're going to change this to RGB. And now we're going to go over here to our diffuse or albedo, and we're going to select all. We're going to copy it, and then we're going to go back to our leveled gloss that we combined with our metalness, and we're going to paste it in place on a new layer. We're going to change the layer mode to multiply yet again and merge down. Now in the channels tab, we are going to uncheck everything except the red channel, and we're going to deselect everything except the red channel. And then we're going to go up here, we're going to select all, and we're going to click copy visible, not copy, copy visible. Then we're going to go back here, we're going to re-enable all this junk, and then we're going to right click on the layer, and we're going to click add layer mask, layers alpha channel, add, and then in the alpha channel, we are going to paste in place, anchor it into the alpha, and then apply the layer mask. We are going to export this into our BlueFlyTrap trickified folder, and we are going to name it shoulderpad _r.tga and export. And now we're going to undo all that we just did. And we're going to do the same thing for the green and the blue channels. And I'll come back once I'm done with that. Okay, so I have exported the R, the G, and the B. Yay. And now we are going to Control Z a bunch until we get our regular gloss layer back, and we can delete gloss leveled. And now with our regular gloss, we are going to go to colors, levels, in the middle input box, 0.24. Okay. Go back to image mode, RGB, right click on it, add alpha channel. If your image is already in RGB mode, and if it already has an alpha channel, you don't have to do those steps. And we're going to select all, copy visible, and then unsee and unselect everything except the red channel. And then I'm going to paste in place, anchor it in, and then I'm going to unsee the red and select both the green and the blue. And then I'm going to reset my color palette by clicking this little thing down here, switch to white, get a brush, turn up the hardness and force all the way up, and make a very large brush. And then I'm just going to fill this entire thing with pure white, which will look blue because we don't have the red channel enabled at the moment. And then we're going to re-enable and re-see the red and alpha channels. And then we are going to export this as shoulderpad _exponent.tga in our BlueFlyTrap trickified folder. And now we are going to go back to our metalness. We are going to select all, copy it. We're going to go to our albedo or diffuse. Then we're going to add an alpha channel to this texture. And then we're going to right click. We're going to add layer mask, layers alpha channel. And then we are going to paste in place the metallic map. We're going to anchor that. And then we're going to apply the layer mask. And then I'm going to get my cavity map. I'm going to select all. I'm going to copy. I'm going to bring it over here. Paste in place on a new layer. I'm going to set it to a 50% opacity and change it to multiply. And because I'm unfortunate to have a cavity map, I have to go back to metalness, select the metalness, invert the metalness, copy the inverted metalness, come back to my multiplied cavity map, and we're going to add a layer mask of white. And in this mask, we are going to paste in place and apply the layer mask. And then we're going to merge. And finally, we can save it in the BlueFlyTrap trickified folder as shoulderpad diffuse. Now in his guide, he specifies that you are to import each of these textures into VTF edit and save the diffuse as a DXT5 VTF, the normal map as a BGRA8888 VTF, the exponent as a DXT1, and the RG and the B as DXT5. You can ignore the CH because CH is for Source Filmmaker, and we're not doing that, we're doing Gmod. You can follow those instructions if you want, but be warned that your final file size will be gigantic. If you've ever wondered why my models typically are like 8 GB in size, it's because I used to follow these instructions, and these settings don't compress file size for the normal map and the exponent. I usually use BGR888 on the exponent, which does not compress almost at all. So the final file sizes are gigantic. So you can just use DXT5 on all of them. The compression will make it look not as good if you do that, but I think it's so minor that most people aren't even going to notice. So if you don't want a gigantic final file size, just use DXT5 on all of your BlueFlyTrap trickified textures that we just made. I'm going to do that off screen. I'm going to turn them all into VTFs, and then we can get on to making the VMT for this thing. I exported them all. We now have shoulder pad diff, shoulder pad exponent, shoulder pad normal, RG, and B. And so now on BlueFlyTrap's guide, he has some downloads for template VMTs. So under the Gmod VMT templates zip, we are going to select NV, GR, and metallic, as well as base material. Not base material with specular or with or for any of these other ones, just base material, the NV, GR, and metallic into our materials folder. And now we need to name all of these after the stack names that we named our shoulder pad text or materials earlier. So I'm just going to be opening shoulder pad metallics. Okay, here's our stack. So metallics 1 and a brace shoulder underscore diff. All right, so in our materials folder, we are going to go to base material. We're going to change that to antebrace shoulder diff. Oh, the second layer is metallic, hence underscore M. So rename the metallic material template to underscore M. And then same with the R and the G and the B. And now we have to copy the material paths from one of our Fennecai materials and go back to the shoulder diffuse material and change it to that, and then copy the name of the BlueFlyTrap trickified texture that we just made and the normal. Then we're going to copy this and we're going to put it there, here, and then change the file name like that. And the exponent texture will be the shoulder pad underscore exponent that we made. Like that, and then save it. So that is the diffuse material down. Don't change any of the parameters yet. We're going to copy the base, the bump, and the fong that we just inputted, and we're going to go on to metallic. And we're going to copy and paste over those first three again, save that. That's the metallic down, and then go on to R. R doesn't have the third option for fong at the top, so we're going to erase that, and we are going to change this from diff to R. And same with G, same with B. And that is how you do the BlueFlyTrap pseudo PBR trick. You're going to have to do that entire process for every single material that you want to be pseudo PBRified. That was just for the shoulder pad and nothing else. I, for some reason, opted to do it for way more than just the shoulder pad, and I'm starting to rethink my life, and my cat is freaking the heck out. Back in Garry's mod, we're going to mat underscore reload all materials and see what the shoulder looks like now. And as you can see, it's much more metallic looking, but it's black. If you recall, it is not a black shoulder pad, but we need to adjust the material parameters in the VMT so that it doesn't look pitch black. If you want to play around with the PBR effect, you can spawn a lamp. I use soft lamps as opposed to the vanilla lamps because they work better, in my opinion, and they're just easier to mess around with. We're going to mess around with the VMT files. Honestly, since like I said, every model is different, just mess around with all of these values. Just turn them up, turn them down, turn them to wildly crazy values, and just one by one, just to see what effect they have. So after messing with it for a long time and looking at the original model in Blender to as a reference, I think I have settled on a value of 0.46 in each parameter for each RG and B parameters in color 2 for the _M metallic VMT. And I have left the other values in the R, the G, and the B, and the diff untouched. All I did was change this from 000 to 0.46 on each one, and I turned up the Fong boost to 78 to get this nice metallic sheen. And I think that is pretty good, as close as we can get anyways in the source engine. At least it actually looks like metal now. So this method really does look the best, and it's just a huge pain in the butt to go through, unfortunately. There is a GitHub program written in JavaScript that is meant to automate the BlueFlyTrap method, and I don't even know if it works, because honestly I don't even know how to use it, because at the moment it's just source code that you have to build. After I asked my friend Agent Lone Star how to do it, who kindly showed me how to build it, I couldn't figure out how to work the program, and I couldn't tell if it was even functional because the guy who made it didn't really specify what stage of development it's in, so I don't even know if it's a working product at the moment. But I will link it in the description if somebody that knows what they're doing wants to look at it and see if it is a functioning product. But yeah, so that is BlueFlyTrap. I'm not going to do the metallic on the these bits and the buckles and everything, because I'm already exhausted just from doing the shoulder pad. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the textures for the rest of her.